Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the No Name Cinema Society, the film review show that dares to dig a little bit deeper. It is episode 62.4, the end of our 60-second series of episodes, and like we do at the end of every set of episodes, we do a sound-off, a freeform segment, sort of a catch-all discussion about films and the film industry and film history. And hi, everybody. My name is Jonathan Betzler. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm here at my home in Los Angeles, California. I've got Emma Stone here behind me to help out with the evening's proceedings. And yeah, I'm very excited about the freeform segment. The freeform segment has its fans. There are people that never watch it. It's the least watched of our shows, but those that watch it religiously because who knows what we're going to say and the various segments that we'll come up with. It's kind of fun. We enjoy doing it, whether you like to watch it or not. Speaking of we, let me introduce you to my co-panelists with me this evening, a co-host. First, one of my partners from the 1959 in review that we just did this past February. Ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Taylor's back with us.
Hello.
And also one of my co-hosts from the 1988 in review and the Below the Liner, who will debut his own segment tonight. Alex Evans is here.
Hello, everyone. And
it looks like they've got drinks. Maybe we'll do that now. Sometimes I do it after the let me do the schedule first. All right. Here's the schedule for this, our 60-second series of episodes. I can't believe we made it this far. And this is our 6th season. And continued last Monday with our review of our Indie Spotlight, Krisha. And this past Thursday, Patrick was with me as we did our classic movie discussion of the film The Princess Bride, which inspired tonight's top 5, as you'll see. And tonight, of course, this sound off, and there are some segments that we've got coming up tonight. All right, now, guys, what's everybody drinking?
I'm drinking a craft services favorite of Pamplemousse Grapefruit LaCroix.
Oh, that's not alcoholic. That's not fun. Patrick, what do you got?
I'm drinking a little Jack Daniels, keeping it smooth.
Nicely done. This is the first beer I've had since the last show. Goose Island, my favorite. And I just want to thank, I had an anonymous donation to, I received a Ralph's gift card in the mail that made this possible. Someone somewhere had noticed my extreme weight loss and sent me a gift card to get some food and some beer. So I'm very grateful to whoever that was. I have not been able to figure out who sent me that, but thank you, and cheers to them, and also cheers to you guys. Happy show, happy sound off.
Hear, hear.
Time for an announcement! We do this every year about this time. We announce sort of our plans for our finale episodes and the lineups, if you will. Every year at the end of our big review show, we put on a poll saying what year you'd like us to study. And so far, historically, we have studied in 2015, we went back 25 years and studied 1990. In 2016, we went back 50 years and studied 1966. 2017, we went back 75 years and studied 1942. And in 2018, we went back 30 years, Alex, and studied
1988.
1988. Alex was a part of that. And last year, we went back 60 years. Patrick studied what year?
1959.
1959, yes. So here was the slide at the end of the 1959 in review that we put up for you fans to vote on to what year we're going to study in 2020. And the results are in. If you're on Instagram, you probably know what we wound up with because we've been sort of posting about it. This year, we are going back 50 years once again, and we're going to study the year 1970, which is appropriate because now we will have studied a year in each decade since the 40s. 1942 for the 40s, 59, 66, 70, 88, and 90 are all the years that we've studied. So we will have studied at least 1 year in each of the decades since the 40s. The lineup for this particular episode for the 1970 in review will be 2 of the new additions in the last 12 months to the society. Zach Domingo and Matt Polis will be endeavoring to do the 1970 in review. And you guys have both done these in the past. Any advice you have for Zach and Matt heading into the 1970 in review?
Don't put off watching them.
Exactly.
One at a time. I heard start early, so I think that was Patrick.
I said don't put off watching them and just try to keep a steady stream of movies constantly that you're watching. And the more you watch, the more rewarding it is.
Patrick, do you agree with that?
I definitely agree. You have to start very early, but it's like a time capsule. You'll start feeling like you're traveling back in time, and things will start making sense more and more as you watch more and more movies. I
The time
enjoy it.
travel thing is interesting because, yeah, Alex and I talked about that too. It gets to a point where I start dreaming in the year. Like last year I was like dreaming as if I was in the late 50s.
Yeah,
It was crazy.
I definitely was not dreaming like I was in the late 50s, but I'm like singing in the rain or something. What am I doing in the 50s? I don't know. Definitely start to understand and get comfortable with the pacing of the films. Like that was a little jarring when I first started, but it definitely gets more natural and you start to enjoy the movies more and more.
Awesome. All right. So that brings us to the other finales that we have coming up, and it looks like they're gonna come out in April because right now the Oscars have been pushed back as of now to late April. So we will publish our finale episodes the week before the Oscars on the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, which leads us to the top 10 of 2020, and that show will reunite. Devin Michaels and Jim Carroll will do the top 10 of 2020. And for the Oscar preview of 2020, which we go through 8 or 9 of I think it was 9 categories, 9 Oscar categories, both doing the Oscar preview for the first time, ladies and gentlemen, are these two gentlemen. Patrick and Alex will be doing Oscar preview 2020 this year. They haven't done it before, but it's similar to the top 10. We're just a little more focused on the Oscar nominees. So that'll be coming up on Oscar week, which is going to be late April.
That is very exciting because last time I went to your Oscar party, I didn't know half of the movies. This will allow me to watch more of the movies and be more involved with the Oscars. So that's good.
That is good. You were too busy watching films from 1959 last year. This year you can focus on 2020. It's time to move on. I'm going to try and sneak this in because people have asked about this question. I'm going to try and sneak this in into the time we have. We have a quick tweet beat. The question from the viewers, they wanted to know what directors and actors have come up the most on the show. And I actually I've mentioned it a couple times in the show in passing, but here as of today, here's where we are in terms of these numbers. Director that we've covered most in the show is one of the bigger directors around. Does anyone want to guess what the director we've covered the most in the show? Alex, you've done at least one show with this director.
Spielberg?
Spielberg is correct. We have done 4 reviews of films directed by Spielberg, starting with Bridge of Spies, episode 18.1. Then we did Raiders of the Lost Ark, episode 28.3. Then we did The Post, which Alex was on, episode 46.1. And then E.T., episode 53.3 with Nate and Devin. We also did a top 5 Spielberg films of all time in episode 18.4. So we have covered Spielberg quite a bit. In terms of actors, male actors, and there's a couple caveats here. First, so we've obviously, my caveat is we've done a lot of Star Wars films. Every year at the end, one of the last episodes we do is a Star Wars film. Alex, I think you both have done Star Wars films. I think you did The Last Jedi with us, episode 45.1, Patrick. You did Rise of Skywalker, episode 59.1, I believe, Alex. The Star Wars films sort of tilt these a little bit, but suffice it to say the 2 Star Wars actors are among the most that we've covered. Oscar Isaac has appeared in 7 different films that we've done reviews of. First, the 3 Star Wars films as Poe. We also did Drive, which he appears in episode 36.2, The Promise, episode 39.1, and Suburbicon, episode 43.1. He also has appeared in films that have appeared in our top 10s. The film Ex Machina appeared in both my and J Money's top 10 of 2015. And At Eternity's Gate appeared on George's top 10 in 2018. So Oscar Isaac has come up quite a bit. And in terms of female actors, another Star Wars person, the late Carrie Fisher has actually come up in 5 different episodes that we've done, including the 3 most recent Star Wars films, episodes 7, 8, and 9. And she was also in Hannah and Her Sisters, which was our classic in episode 5. And Shampoo, she's a smaller own Shampoo, episode 17.3. So she leads all women, having appeared in 5 different films that we've reviewed. If you discount the Star Wars films, then the results are a little bit different. Starting with someone who's considered one of the greatest actors of all time. I know, Patrick, you at least did one review of a film that he was in, a baseball movie.
Yeah, I saw the baseball movie, but I can't remember the actor.
One of the biggest actors of all time is Robert De Niro, and he's been in 5 different films that we've done reviews of, starting with Joy, episode 22.1, Goodfellas, episode 26.3. Hands of Stone, episode 33.1. Brazil, episode 48.3, which Alex was on that review. And Bang the Drum Slowly, episode 58.3, which Patrick was on last year. He also came up in our 1990 review because Davey said that he should have won Best Actor for the film Awakenings. He's also appeared in 3 different top 10s that we've done. He appeared in Goodfellas, of course, which was our number 1 film of 1990. Awakenings, also 1990, made my top 10 of that year. And last year he was in the film Joker, which made Jim's top 10 of 2019. So Robert De Niro is one of the most oft actors that has come up on the show. Do you remember now, Patrick, him in Bang the Drum Slowly?
Yes. He had he died in that film. It was very sad, but he was the lovable idiot.
I know it's a spoiler, but it's a classic. It's from 1973, so audience, don't get too mad at him. And from a female point of view, Julianne Moore is the non-Star Wars actor who has appeared in the most reviews that we've done 4 different films. Hunger Games, Mockingjay 2, episode 20.1, The Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle, episode 42.1, Suburbicon, episode 43.1, and A Single Man, episode 54.2, which we did just last year. She also appeared in an Oscar preview in 2014 when Davey said she should have won the Oscar for Still Alice, and she did win the Oscar for that. We all said that she would, and she did, and Davey said that she should have. And she's made 1 top 10 film. She made my top 10 in 2018 for a film called Bel Canto. And now the actors to appear in the most top 10s on the show to close out our our little tweet beat here. First, on the female side, Laura Dern has appeared on 4 different top 10s. 5 in a way, because Little Women was on both Jim and Alex's top 10 this past year in 2019. Also, Jim had Marriage Story in his top 10 of 2019. Devin had the film Downsizing in 2017 on his top 10, and she was in that. And I had Wild at Heart in my top 10 of 1990. So that is 5 different top 10 mentions for Laura Dern for films that she was in. She's also come up in the Oscar preview a couple times, in which in 2014 I said she should have won Best Supporting Actress for Wild. She did not, but she did win in 2019, and she came up there as well as the person that we said would win, and George said that she should have won last year for Marriage Story. I also said that she should have been nominated for Best Actress in 1990, also for Wild at Heart. The only show that we've done a review of one of her films is the Star Wars film The Last Jedi, which she makes a memorably controversial appearance in The Last Jedi.
The evening gown military.
Yes.
Yes, I remember her in that movie.
Okay,
yes.
Great. Perfect.
Success.
On the male side, the person that's appeared in the most top 10s, Willem Dafoe, has appeared on 7 different top 10s films that have come up over the course of the show. In our 1988 review, Mississippi Burning from 1988, I had him in my top 10 for that. I already mentioned Wild at Heart. He also appears in that film. That made my top 10 of 1990. The Florida Project, which he appears in, made both my and Devin's top 10s in 2017. At Eternity's Gate again made George's top 10 of 2018. Alex and Jim had The Lighthouse in their top 10s just this past year. So that adds up to 7 different appearances. He's also come up in the Oscar preview in which both Nate and James said he should have won Best Supporting Actor of 2017. He did not. And Devin said he should have been nominated for Best Actor for Mississippi Burning in 1988. If you remember that, Alex.
I do.
We've done 3 different reviews of films that he's been in. Episode 44.1, we did Murder on the Orient Express with Willem Dafoe. Episode 54.3, Patrick was with us for the Last Temptation of Christ review. And episode 57.1 was our review of Motherless Brooklyn, in which we actually said that he had a misguided performance. So, guys, those are the biggest actors and director that we've talked about on the show. Anything about any of those guys? Robert De Niro, Julianne Moore, Willem Dafoe, Laura Dern, Oscar Isaac, Carrie Fisher.
I'll just second At Eternity's Gate. I thought that one was great.
I really didn't like it.
Perhaps
a discussion for another day. I found it grating, actually. But we talk about that in the top 10 films of 2018. Patrick, anything on At Eternity's Gate or any of those actors?
For Willem, I would just say you can't forget about his amazing performance as the Green Goblin in Spider-Man.
You can't, but for better
He's
or
something
worse,
of a scientist himself.
Exactly. For whatever reason, better or worse, it has not come up on the show yet. So that's why I didn't bring it up. I was referring to show mentions. But so those are the actors that are now almost like a part of our family because we talk about them. We've talked about them the most on the show. All right, we got a new segment coming up. You guys ready ready to move on?
Yep.
All right. I think Alex is going to be up here. I have no idea what's going to happen. It's the below the line report. So this is a segment that we sort of talked about, and I don't know how he's going to execute it, but we talked about doing a segment where he looked at one of our indies or classics and found a below the liner and sort of looked at their career. We mainly talk about directors and actors on the show, sometimes composers like Patrick, but we don't talk about DPs enough or sound people, you know what I mean? So, Alex thought it'd be cool to do that. And I love the idea. We'll see how it all plays out. Alex, I've got no idea what's going to happen. The floor is yours.
So the below the liner I'll be discussing is Ted Moore, the cinematographer for From Russia with Love, a classic episode I did alongside JB. Patrick, were you on that one as well?
No, that was Zach Domingo was on that show with you.
Yeah.
Episode 61.3.
So Ted has an interesting and storied career. He's born in South Africa in 1914. He shot several Bond titles, the first several in the franchise, Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, Diamonds Are Forever, Live and Let Die, Man with the Golden Gun. So he's really the guy that established the look of the Bond films and is the cohesion, because I think there's different directors. Him and Sean Connery are the consistency for that period of Bond films. Before being a cinematographer, he began his career as a camera operator. Some of his notable credits include The Black Knight with Alan Ladd, keeping with his long career of action flicks. He was also the camera operator on The African Queen with Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn. He also later in his career shot Clash of the Titans in 1981, an effects-heavy blockbuster that came out the year after The Empire Strikes Back, and by comparison, doesn't really hold up. But for a guy born in 1914 who'd been working so long, I think the stop-motion animation is pretty impressive and is an ambitious picture.
And that was Harryhausen that did the animation, wasn't it?
I believe so. He has a total of 51 credits as a cinematographer. So if you watch a lot of classic movies, there's a good chance you'll run into some of Ted Moore's work.
Clash of the Titans has sort of like this cult status now. Like it's the out-of-date effects sort of add to its charm to some degree.
I just watched it again a few months ago.
Cool. Now, what I'm curious, and I didn't know what you're gonna say, so I didn't know I was gonna ask you this. But as you were talking, I'm thinking, seeing a lot of those Bond films and also Clash of the Titans, I'm wondering what you think it is visually that he brings to these movies. Yeah, obviously there's a specialization almost in action films, and maybe he got pigeonholed to some degree. What do you think he brings to the table from a cameraman point of view?
Well, there's a lot of action sequences in creative settings. Like even in From Russia with Love, there's the stuff with the periscope underneath the Russian embassy. There's the boat chase. There's the train car fight. A lot of different styles and different types of action sequences happening. So it takes somebody who's innovative and able to change things on the fly on set usually, but also who is a very good planner. So he's probably worked a lot with storyboard artists and folks like that. One
of the things that we talked about in the review of From Russia with Love is the amount of shots, the amount of coverage that they were able to get during the action scenes that helped move those along. And the pace is actually very quick for 1964, I think it was, or 63 or 64.
The boat chase cinematography in particular is stuff that's really hard to do, and I think he captured it pretty well.
And there's some innovative angles, and also they made some of the helicopter shots work. I'm glad you picked him. I hadn't remembered his name, and remembering From Russia with Love and Dr. No, and particularly Goldfinger, I mean, that, of course, is the coup de grace. There's a lot of cool stuff in those films from a cinematography point of view. They don't stand out from a lighting point of view so much, but I mean, they're very efficient and effective.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of composition, I feel like that sticks out, but the lighting is kind of par for the course for that era. Just even being par for the course, the speed of getting that much coverage is stuff that takes somebody who's really good at managing the lighting, grip, and camera departments.
Certain amount of flexibility, too, I think.
Absolutely.
Patrick, I know this isn't your segment, but you've probably seen some of the Bond films.
I haven't seen that far back in the Bond films in quite some time. I remember enjoying them. I never really looked at them and said, "Oh wow, that was an amazing shot." So I don't know if I ever questioned who the cinematographer was, but maybe I should give it another look.
Well, I mean, I think that's the point of the segment, is to sort of spotlight some folks that we might not think about or talk about as much. Yeah. Alec, when did Ted Moore pass away? I assume he passed away.
He passed away, and I'll pull it up right now.
Early 80s, maybe, a little bit after Clash of the Titans?
1987, at the age of 72.
So he worked up until it sounded like he was like 67 or something when he did Clash of the Titans. So
his last credit's 1982. Another big film of his that he did was A Man for All Seasons.
Holy cow, that won Best Picture. Should have led with that.
I haven't seen it, so I didn't feel like it was fair for me to.
That was part of our 1966 in review. I wonder if he was nominated. Let's get to the bottom of that.
Winner for Best Cinematography at the BAFTAs for From Russia with Love. The British Society of Cinematographers for Best Cinematography for From Russia with Love.
Oh, wow. He won for From Russia with Love. That's pretty good. So looking up 66 cinematography, he won. He won the Oscar for Best Cinematography in 1966 for A Man for All Seasons.
Reading about his career and everything now, I got to go check that movie out.
It's very exciting that he shot Man for All Seasons. That was the big film from our 1966 interview. We all said it should have lost Best Picture because you actually have the DVD of the film that we all said should have won Best Picture in 1966.
Yeah.
You know what I'm referring to?
Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Yes. So
number Haskell Wexler.
There you go. And that one for Black and White, I think. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf won cinematography, Black and White, and Man for All Seasons won for color. That's very cool because that was a big film that we studied that year. And it was my number 10 film, I think, of 1966. Maybe 11. It may have got just bumped out. If you do watch it, we'll do a second run on it because I'm curious to see what you have to say about it.
Okay.
About Sir Thomas More. I don't suppose you've seen A Man for All Seasons, Patrick.
No, I haven't.
Patrick has some work to do. So that was our first below the line report. Alex, how do you feel? Is this something you want to keep doing?
Yeah, it was fun to do. I feel like I'm getting an idea from doing the notes on this go around, and I think as I continue to watch movies for the show, it'll be easier to think of things that stick out. If I see one department's work that I really want to explore, I can go into that department head and try to talk about it on the following Sound Off.
Well, we're going to keep this in your wheelhouse. So, it'll be your segment for whenever you're on the Sound Off. So that'll be kind of fun. And thank you for doing all that work. That's awesome. And I'm very excited that we got to tie From Russia with Love to Man for All Seasons. All right. That was a quick one. So we're moving on to this thing you've all been waiting for. It's time for the top 5. There it is. Top 5 films written by William Goldman, inspired by our review of The Princess Bride and this past classic. Of course, The Princess Bride is a film that he wrote the novel and screenplay for. It's very exciting that we're going to count down the top 5 films written by William Goldman. And it's actually not the first time we did a top 5 of films by a screenwriter. In episode 22.4, we did a top 5 films written by Dalton Trumbo. But William Goldman is not just any screenwriter. He's also written 2 seminal books about screenwriting and the film industry. Adventures in the Screen Trade and Which Lie Did I Tell? And both Alex and I have used both of those books as reference material for like a decade. I'm pleased to report that both Alex and Patrick will be joining me for this top 5. So that'll be kind of fun to get everybody involved. It's more than just JB's top 5 tonight, and we've all been watching films and sharing DVDs, to make this happen. The only caveat is that we're only doing films for which Goldman wrote the screenplay, not if he wrote the novel and someone else wrote the script. Like I said, though he did adapt his own screenplays sometimes, adapt his own novel sometimes, like for The Princess Bride. All right, so Alex, you finished off, or you texted me said you've watched 14 of his films.
Yes, that's correct.
There's one that didn't get here in time, unfortunately. So, but I'm at 15, but I didn't rewatch some of the ones I've watched for a decade. So I'd watched 15 of them total. So my top 5 will be out of 15. Patrick, where'd you wind up?
I ended up with only 5.
I feel like I dropped more than 5 DVDs off at your house.
3, but no.
So his top 5 will be out of 5. So it'll be a very different list. Now, Patrick, you had said, you had said, I've got stuff to say about this guy, William Goldman, who's generally considered to be, and we can talk about this over the course of the top 5, one of the best screenwriters. Up until last year, he was one of the best living screenwriters. He's since passed away. Potentially one of the best screenwriters ever. Do you have an overarching comment, or do you want to go through it as we hit each one?
I think because of the films that I watched, The General's Daughter, Stepford Wives, I just felt like he has a very strange relationship with women and rape culture, aggression towards women. I had a weird feeling about his writing style just because of the 3 films that I actually started with.
We'll break that down on an individual basis, I suppose. Let's see who gets to go first here in our top 5 William Goldman films. Spoiler, one of his biggest films is not going to make my top 5s. That's my the thing that's going to get people angry. Alex, you go first. What is your number 5 William Goldman film?
Number 5 is The Ghost in the Darkness. It's both a period epic and a monster horror film. The movie creates tear while exploring character with leads Val Kilmer, Michael Douglas, and John Candy. I thought there were spectacular practical effects done by Stan Winston Studios that seamlessly meshed with them and the practical trained lions on set. It's a story of arrogance and determination in the face of a seemingly unstoppable force of evil in the man-eating lions. Goldman spent years trying to get this story made into a film, being fascinated by this true story on which it was based. There's great passages about it in his second book, Which Lie Did I Tell?, which JB already mentioned earlier, which I'm just finishing reading right now, and I highly recommend.
It's funny because Ghost in the Darkness is one of the ones that I missed. It was owned by Q, and Patrick was taking a buttload amount of time to get those DVDs in after I dropped them off with him. So I didn't get that one. I was planning to watch it, and I missed it. I was looking forward to it. There was one or two I wanted to prioritize ahead of it. I missed it.
My relationship with the Stan Winston School made me excited to see this work on the Lions in it.
I was going to mention that you used to work for the Stan Winston School. All right, Patrick, it's time for your number 5.
My number 5 would be The General's Daughter. How it started was like, oh man, this guy, again, with women and violence. It really does become enjoyable. It's kind of formulaic, but it is an enjoyable film. I thought the strangest thing about this film was watching the lead, John Travolta, have a Southern accent in the beginning, and it just threw me off.
It's not a good one either.
It's not a good one at all. I did wind up getting wrapped up in the story. Some of the acting is a little overdone, like the African-American right-hand man of the general was just a little over the top for me. I did think it was an enjoyable film, so that would be my number 5.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about General's Daughter is, I mean, I think it is, I think the book was probably pretty good potboiler. And I thought the script was actually really strong. The script and premise were very compelling. And so the failure for me really lies in film direction. I've always thought Simon West is in the Joel Schumacher camp. And I know we just lost Joel Schumacher, so that's probably sad. But in the sense that they were among one of the worst directors working in Hollywood, not so much in an Ed Wood way, it's more in an overly glossy kind of way, like as subtle as a chainsaw. So all the little nuances that I think were baked into the script, Simon West, the director, sort of hit you over the head with. I thought the performances all around were pretty bad, except for Madeline Stowe. I thought Travolta was really bad. I also etch a lot of that up to direction. So I think Simon West and John Travolta combine to make this problematic for me. Frustrating because I do think the screenplay is strong. Goldman's work is strong. I think they messed it up. They actually boned it. It's frustrating because I feel like it's a wasted opportunity when you have some decent material to play with. Alex, I think you saw General's Daughter.
I did. I have it ranked 13 out of 14. I felt like it was really overproduced, and the fact that the investigation got an entire aircraft hangar to use as a soundstage for recreating the woman's house, the military would never give the budget for that.
But it's the General's Daughter.
It just took me out of the movie.
I will say, performance-wise, the General's Daughter herself was one of the better actors. Her career went nowhere after that, but I thought she showed potential. So it's time for my number 5. You guys ready and as excited as I am?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, my number 5 surprised me. And so that's why it's going to be ahead of some of the ones that you might expect to see in here. I was surprised how much I enjoyed The Stepford Wives. In it, number 5 here. The book was written by Ira Levin, who also wrote Rosemary's Baby. And it's not a good book. It's an interesting premise. And I think William Goldman got the most out of that premise. I was impressed how the film and the script constantly walked the line of plausible deniability. Joanna and Bobby's concerns were valid, but could easily be explained away with some reason, which made for a fascinating unraveling. I was also impressed with director Brian Forbes, who is not someone who had an extensive career or someone I knew prior to this. The restraint he showed was perfect, and the subdued tone very effective, which is a difficult thing to pull off. It was cold and detached, and in that sense, not manipulative at all. That tone should have shifted a little in the third act as things ramped up. He did have more extreme angles and shot choices in the third act, which was appropriate, but the pace remained that same methodical pace. I also feel like Catherine Ross is miscast here in the lead. Film could have used someone more interesting and expressive. The film is obviously about women's liberation and the threat that men perceive it to be to the patriarchy, but I also think it's about the illusion of happiness that is associated with the dynamic of the American nuclear family. I rather enjoyed it, and so I have it ahead of a very other famous Goldman film that otherwise would have made this list. I've got The Stepford Wives here, which I watched for the first time, and it's the only film I watched for the first time for this project to make my top 5. It sounds like you both watched it. Do you guys both watch that strange YouTube version?
Yes.
I watched the one on Amazon.
Amazon. So we watched some guys in vests introducing it and interrupting it every 5 minutes, which was annoying but
I would
charming
describe
in
them
its
as
own way.
Penn and Teller fanboys.
So what did you guys think of Stepford Wives?
I enjoyed it. I'd previously seen the remake with Nicole Kidman in theaters when that came out.
I had to. I didn't enjoy that.
No, I like this one better than the remake. It's only 11 out of 14 on my list, but I enjoyed a lot of these movies. So that isn't meant to as an insult to it.
No. So you enjoyed at least 11 out of the 14. So that's a pretty good ratio.
It was terrible, but I liked it.
It was so bad. It was so bad.
We're going to move on to number 4, and who gets to do their number 4 first? It is Patrick. So we'll see. What do you got for number 4?
My number 4 is The Stepford Wives.
All right. The appropriate poster stays behind me.
Yes, I do feel like I was into it. The pacing was a little strange. I think just like you were just saying about the third act, I was shocked when she hit the husband over the head with the poker. I just didn't see it coming. I was like, what the hell is happening? And
but a good kind of shock, right? Isn't it a good kind of shock?
No. I was like, that was a complete overreaction. Where are your kids? Why are you killing the father? She didn't know what was going on at that point. She saw her fears coming true, but she didn't have any idea that there was robots or she didn't really know. She thought something was still in the water. She didn't know her husband's role in the whole thing. Not yet. So I don't know. I just thought that was just a little too far.
It's a bold moment, but I liked it. I liked its boldness because I feel like it sort of spoke to how much she was digging into her intuition on this thing. I understand she didn't have the evidence, but she knew, and she was acting out on it.
At least threaten him, like, where are my kids? He's got to answer that before you hit him over the head and you could almost kill him.
But I mean, I think that was intentional. Like, I think there's something to the fact that she didn't wait. I didn't think it was disingenuous. I thought there was a problem in her performance. Like I said, I think that moment had some balls. You said the pace was strange. I loved the pace, at least for the first 2/3. I thought it was really creepy in the best possible way. When you say strange, did you mean that, or did you mean like?
I did, because in my mind, I'm thinking about the Stepford Wives, the ads that I saw for the more recent film. So I knew it was kind of like, okay, body snatchers, something or other like that. And I'm like, get to the point. What the hell is going on? Why is it so slow? And then
it pays off.
And when it got to the payoff of like, oh, it was too far. So I was like, you're going too far with what I wanted. I don't know. So I wasn't satisfied with the arc or with that being the kind of the climactic action of the film. I thought I would get more into the world of like, of the scientist and what's going on. Even though I didn't need to, I just wanted a little kernel earlier on to know what the hell was the point of this film. I enjoyed it, but I just wanted him to get to it. Give me some of the meat. But you're saying that's why you liked it.
Because I feel like by giving us the limited perspective, which is something that North by Northwest did for the first couple acts, you also struggled with that. Patrick's just impatient, is what it boils down to. But it sort of enhanced the mystery. It puts you in line with Catherine Ross's character in the sense that you don't know what's going on either. And that's what I liked about the plausible deniability. They're like, their fears they have some validity, but not necessarily. Oh, that explanation that person gave made a little bit of sense. Maybe are we crazy too? Like along with them?
Right.
Like I like that playing with that.
I did too. I got it. It was the culture wars. It's kind of the conservatives versus the women's liberation. It was like, what's wrong with these women caring about their home? I get it. Oh, another example. I get it. Oh, another example. Hit him over the head. I'm feeling like his writing in this particular film didn't hold me, but I was intrigued by the intro.
Okay. Sounds good. And Alex, you spoke a lot about it. It's number 11 for you. Anything else you want to add to what we've been talking about, Stepford Wives?
No, I mean, I'd recommend the movie.
I would too, obviously, very much. We made a couple of our top 5s. It was the discovery of the project for me. It was the only one that I had not seen before to make this list. So speaking of 4, Alex, you're number 4.
My number 4 is All the President's Men. I think the script takes a complex story of political intrigue and navigates it expertly by means of a character piece about Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein breaking the Watergate scandal. It keeps the seriousness of the subject matter while finding small moments of levity along the way. it feels like there are a million people in this movie that still manage to have a story that you can follow.
I will now reveal that this is the one that Stepford Wives pushed off my list. All President's Men is considered one of the greatest films of all time. I admire it. I like it. I don't love it. And I find it a little dry. And I think to your point, Alex, screenwriting-wise, the amount of information is very impressive, the way they get
I just appreciated how hard this would be to write this movie.
Yeah, especially, and I mean, in his book, I don't remember which one at this point. I think it was the first one, Adventures in Screen Trade. He talks about all the politics involved because Dustin Hoffman had his own draft that he wanted to write. Carl Bernstein himself and his fiance at the time was Nora Ephron.
Yeah.
They were writing their own draft.
That anecdote is in Which Lie Did I Tell about the Nora Ephron avoiding him for years because she wrote her own spec version of the script.
It was very contentious, the environment that he had to live with. He wound up winning the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay. He won one original, one adapted. It's a great job of screenwriting. The actual film, I feel like, is a little dry and doesn't get me as emotionally invested. And so it didn't make my top 5. I love some of these films a little more. It would be easily number 6, I think.
One thing that took me out of it a little bit is just, and I find this in any Dustin Hoffman movie, where there's a bunch of women that are into Dustin Hoffman, and he's like, "Oh, that you were warned about me?" And it's just like, this guy? Come on.
Yeah, Carl Bernstein was a player at the time. So, Patrick, you haven't seen a Story of Watergate, Woodward and Bernstein. Are you curious about it? Sounds like your type of movie.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Cool. Maybe it'll be a classic movie discussion someday, but not in the next year or two. We got a backlog going. Time for number 4, guys. And we talked about earlier about Man for All Seasons. We talked about during Alex's segment as being one of the films from our 1966 in review. I got another film coming up here from our 1966 in review. I actually missed it back then, but I watched it for the first time not too long ago as a possible obscure movie discovery. Written by William Goldman. He also does commentary in the DVD. The film is called Harper from 1966 with Paul Newman. Our irascible guest panelist on the 1966 in review actually suggested that Paul Newman should have gotten a Best Actor nomination for this movie, which happened to be the first screenplay that Goldman wrote, adapting it from another novelist. I disagree about the Paul Newman thing, although I did enjoy the film. I think it's highly entertaining whodunit that fires on all cylinders. Writing, directing, acting, with one large exception. However, it never rises above that, which is to say it doesn't work on many levels or suggest anything about the human existence. It doesn't have depth. It's a compelling, intelligent, complex, pleasantly twisty murder mystery, entertaining but not profound. I would say just shy of great, but really, really strong. I enjoyed Harper. It doesn't sound like Patrick watched it. Alex, any chance you've seen Harper?
No, not yet, but it was one of the ones I'm interested in watching still.
So I guess there's not going to be much in the way of a debate on that one. But Paul Newman as a detective. You excited for that one, Patrick?
Yes, I'm excited.
All right, so moving on to number 3, and it looks like Alex gets to do his number 3 first. Alex, what is your number 3 film written by William Goldman?
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It's a film that put Goldman on the map, and the one by which he judges all of his other work based on his book, Adventures in the Screenplay and Which Lie Did I Tell? It's a great cowboy movie that breaks the convention and brings the spirit of the 60s to a well-worn genre. I think watching it in the context of having seen a bunch of 40s and 50s Westerns and early 60s Westerns, then seeing this makes you appreciate it more. Paul Newman and Robert Redford have great chemistry in the film, and it takes a long and complex story and makes it fun and just has a great chase sequence.
Who are those guys? Sequence.
The Super Posse.
Patrick, it better be your number 3.
No, I actually have never seen this film. I never saw that film.
It's funny because it came up on a top 5 in episode, the 60s Westerns one, 55.4, I think. And you said that was the one that you'd seen. Your dad made you watch it.
Yeah, I'm sure he did, but I just can't remember it necessarily. I probably remember it was a good time, but I can't really recall.
The same actress from Stepford Wives is in it.
It does. Catherine Ross is in it. Also as Harper, Paul Newman. There's some reprisals of actors in a lot of these films. Your number 3, Patrick.
My number 3 is Hearts in Atlantis.
From a Stephen King short story, and actually William Goldman adapted a bunch of Stephen King's.
I didn't know why I was enjoying this film so much. I didn't understand why they had to put the psychic thing in there. I know that that's kind of the point of the film, but I was like, what? He's a psychic? I didn't understand that. And then when I found out that was like the main driving force of the film, it kind of took me out. But just hanging out with Anthony Hopkins, him with these kids, it was kind of just watching a master at work. I really just enjoy his films.
Yeah, and Anthony Hopkins did a number of, speaking of reprising actors, he did a number of films written by William Goldman, including a film called Magic in 1978, Bridge Too Far in 1977. So yeah, Hearts in Atlantis. I didn't mind this film. It was definitely better than I thought it would be. Like General's Daughter, it suffers from screen direction issues. Like it's a film that could have been so much better and should have been so much better. It's a really good story, really good script that lacks in execution. Scott Hicks, the director, did a better job than Simon West in dealing with William Goldman. The actual story of the film was laid out beautifully, carefully peeling away the mystery that is Ted layer by layer in a believable way while maintaining the kid's point of view. But in the edit, Hicks breaks away from Bobby to show what's going on with the mother or even with Carol. But there's no dialogue in the sequences, which leads me to believe that there were directorial flourishes and not in the script. Poor choices, one of a handful made by Hicks. I also thought Hicks did a poor job in terms of a manipulation of emotion. I thought was overwrought. And so a lot of his choices seem to point in that direction, sort of milking the sentimentality out of it. I think that this was a good film, but a flawed film. And most of the flaws, lie in direction. I thought Hope Davis gave a very weak performance, someone who I've admired over the years and I've seen on stage, and she's normally great. I think she was off here. But I think, to your point, Anthony Hopkins is very strong. He seems to do it without exerting much energy. It's a very laid-back, easygoing performance. Even though the character is mysterious, in Hopkins' hands, it seems very thorough and complete.
Yeah, I enjoyed the ride up. And then the third act, once it got to the kind of point of it, I was like, where are they going? I'm more like, that's the writing. I don't know what you thought about the turn where you really discovered that he was a psychic, but I was like, where the hell did that come from?
Well, that comes from Stephen King. That would have been in the original.
I mean, that would have been in the original, but why not tease it in the second act? Why not tease it more in the first act?
And that is another recurring theme that we keep talking about that I'm liking that you're not, is the layer by layer sort of peeling away. Like, I like that structure where it gives us breadcrumbs but doesn't give us too much too soon. And it seems like we're at odds about that.
If this breadcrumbs, I don't know what the analogy is, but it's too small of a crumb. Like,
you want some slices.
I mean, it's a whole loaf of bread. Give me a slice. They hint at it briefly. You remember it, like once you realize that he's psychic, you're like, oh, they kind of hinted at it. It's just too small of a foreshadowing for me to kind of be comfortable when I figure out what the point of this film is.
My notes say I did like this movie mostly. That's the last line of my notes. So that says something. Alex, I think you've seen this one.
I have. I rated it number 9 out of 14. I enjoyed the film a lot, and thinking about Anton Yelchin's unfortunate death at a young age.
He was great.
Yeah, it made me sad to think of his loss, but thankful for the performances he left behind.
For sure. I kept wondering what the movie's really about. Did it want to be about growing up and the maturation process, or did it really want to be about empathy with our fellow humans? The way that Ted and sometimes Bobby can see into the minds and hearts of other people not only gives them an advantage in betting, but it also allows them to understand the people that they're dealing with. And understanding them helps them cope just a little bit better, more so than those that don't try to understand each other, like the way that Bobby's mother winds up lashing out, feeling, and then creating pain. And I kind of wish there was more exploration of that concept. Speaking of breadcrumbs, that piece of bread was sort of left on the table for me. And so another little flaw in the film that I feel like it could have gone a little bit deeper in that regard.
I enjoyed the film. I'd recommend it.
So, Alex, you had Butch Cassidy, Hearts in Atlantis for Patrick. And my number 3 is probably coming up on Patrick's list. I've got Misery is here, and it's a film that came up, of course, in our 1990 in review. So we've talked about it in the past, and I actually named it as the best adapted screenplay of that year. I also said it had one of the best performances by an actress that year, an Oscar that it actually won. In our countdown of the best actress winners in episode 29.4, Kathy Bates came in 5th. As you may have seen on Instagram, I watched it again in March for its 30th anniversary when it was free on Vudu. I feel like it's an extremely taut, detailed thriller with a very real, frightening, iconic villain at its center. Goldman and director Rob Reiner do a great job disseminating information without ever losing momentum or focus on the character. The claustrophobia and the obsession is very palpable in this film, and it succeeds on many levels. I'm not going to talk to Patrick because I have a feeling he's going to talk about it shortly. I'm going to again turn to Alex to see what he has to say.
I have not seen this one yet.
Wow.
Interesting. All right. Well, the good news is we can move right along, and I think Patrick is going first, and I'm going to bet. Here's my bet that we're going to stay in the same film. Patrick?
We are staying at the same film.
You're number 2.
Yes, I watched this film when I was maybe 10 years old, about a couple of years after it came out. Scarred. I am scarred for life probably watching this film. I treasure my ankles. It is a film that children definitely should not watch. And I did. Images are just seared in your mind. That might be the directing or just the story that's leading up to those moments. I actually saw this on the list and I refused to watch it again. So that might tell you something a little bit about the mark that it left on me. But the fact that he adapted Stephen King's story and he brought it to life like this, it washes out some of the bad taste that I had from some of the other movies that I watched.
All right, well and we can move right along again because I've already pitched my bit of Misery. I'm a big fan, and like I said, it was one of our bigger films that we talked about in 1990. I think we all agreed on the 1990 review that she should have won Best Actress, which of course she did, and a lot of us agreed about Best Adapted Screenplay of the year for William Goldman. So yeah. Misery loves company, so company here loves Misery. That works out. Do what I can, Patrick. Any jokes that I can sneak in there, good or bad. So, Alex, you're number 2.
My number 2 is Chaplin. It's a great biopic that tells a complex and long storied life in a heartwarming and creative way. I watched it with my family, and then we watched The Great Dictator right after. Great depiction of Charlie Chaplin as performed by Robert Downey Jr., playing him at several different ages. Thought the old age makeup held up surprisingly well for a 1992 film. I thought it did a good job of not turning away from his less likable qualities and still including those in the story.
Patrick, I'm going to assume that you have not seen Chaplin.
No, I haven't seen it.
I didn't think so. I've seen Chaplin a bunch of times. It's right in my wheelhouse, but I actually feel like it's a poorly crafted film. Directed by Richard Attenborough, who also directed Bridge Too Far. Anthony Hopkins, again, makes an appearance in this film, in keeping with the Anthony Hopkins-William Goldman collaboration. My issue with Chaplin, I always use Chaplin as the example of a biopic gone wrong, in the sense that I do feel like a couple films that made your top 10, Tolkien and Harriet, to me, they bit off more than they can chew. They're so sprawling, they lose any momentum or impact, because they try to cover so much ground. It's an echo that I talk about a lot on this show for various films, but Chaplin, I think, is a prime example of that. There is so many things that happen, and it's so fragmented of a film, and it's a very interesting life. I guess Robert Downey Jr. actually said something to them early in the process along those same lines, that they had focused on one area or another. There was potentially 4 or 5 different great movies that could have been made out of this movie.
It was very episodic.
By trying to put it all together, I feel like it dilutes the whole thing. And the performance by Robert Downey Jr. is amazing. Amazing work performance-wise for him. There's just too much. It suffers under its own weight for me. So that's my rebuttal for Chaplin. Although it's in line with a lot of the films that made your top 10 in the sense that these biopics like Tolkien and Harriet that are a little sprawling for my taste.
Can I just say Harriet might have been my least favorite film of that whole year. Maybe I don't want to watch Chaplin. I hated Harriet. I thought it was the worst film
I would say
in a long time.
Chaplin and Harriet they're very different films. They're both sprawling, but they are not the same film.
No, and true, it's not backpedaling per se. I will say I will watch Chaplin over and over again. Because I'm interested in all the segments individually, and I'm interested in Chaplin himself. I'd read this biography before the film came out, and I was young then, believe it or not. There was a time when I was young. Each individual segment is very strong, and the performance is amazing. It's very rewatchable to me. I just feel like, as a whole, it's another one that should have been better. And this one might be on Goldman. I don't know if it was his decision or Attenborough to not focus the script that way. I feel like a more focused script might have been the answer. But I had a feeling it was going to be on your list, given your love for Tolkien and Harriet. Alex, at least you're consistent.
It's true. I remain the same person.
All right. So my number 2 is one that has come up quite a bit on recently, because we just reviewed the film a couple nights ago. I've got The Princess Bride as my number 2, which William Goldman wrote based on his own book. And one of the things I said about it on the show is it's potentially the most quoted film of the 1980s. I don't want to go too much into it because Patrick and I just reviewed the film on the show a couple nights ago. We talked about the dialogue at length, as well as how the structure and detail of the characters and the world building, of course, making a medieval world all his own. It's a smart, delightful script and film, something that is beloved today. Yeah, The Princess Bride is my number 2. I imagine you guys might want to comment on it later, I presume?
Yes.
For sure.
Right, we've only got one more left, so and it sounds like you guys are going to be in agreement, not to bury the lead, but it looks like I get to keep the same poster up here. So who gets Alex? I think you're first. You are. So am I keeping the same poster up for your number one?
You are. My number one is Princess Bride. Originally written as a bedtime story for his daughters. One daughter wanted a story about a princess, and the other daughter wanted a story about a bride. That's how the title came about. Say it's classic and genre busting all at once. I could watch this film 100 times and not tire of it. Clever dialogue, great plotting, wonderful action. It includes dialogue references to real fencing masters during the fight between Wesley and Inigo.
Yeah, no, it's a great film. Patrick, is it your number one as well?
Definitely my number one. I question whether he wrote it because of all of the other movies that I'm not saying he didn't write it, but I'm just, I love this film. So I'm just like, this guy wrote Heat. I'm amazed by his range because I've seen how bad he can be, but I also see how great he can be. It's amazing.
One thing I think is that's consistent, even in Heat, you even said this about Heat and General's Daughter, is the dialogue is, and not we often say that screenwriting is not just dialogue, but one thing that is consistent in William Goldman's work is that even in the worst film I saw was Year of the Comet, even the dialogue is strong there.
Yeah, quotables for days. He's amazing. Like, if I'm a promo editor, he is amazing. I'm going to take so many bites because I am a promo editor.
Yeah, I was going to say you are a promo editor.
I am a promo editor. I'm taking so many bites. I'm watching the movie like, oh, there's one, up, there's one, there's one.
Year of the Comet had dialogue that was clever, but it felt like it was performed by somebody doing like a high school English project and being like, I got my aunt and uncle to be in the movie.
Was it 14 out of 14 for you, though? It was 15 out of 15 for me?
It is 14 out of 14 for me. In Which Lie Did I Tell, he talks about it being a dud and says it's the worst thing he's ever made.
In my notes, I actually wrote, I can't believe William Goldman did something this bad.
Princess Bride, though, what was his favorite work that he did?
Was it?
Yes.
Because I thought my number one was his favorite work, which is my segue. Hope you like it. This one previously appeared on two other top fives on the show. It was number 2 in my top 5 action comedies of all time in episode 36.4. And my number 1 in my top 5 60s Westerns of all time in episode 55.4, of which Patrick was a part. Patrick, what's my number 1 film? Useless. The man is useless. Ladies and gentlemen, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is my number 1 William Goldman film, and it's a top 100 film for me of all time. And each time I've mentioned it on the show, I've highlighted the brilliant and funny Oscar-winning screenplay by William Goldman, and I've said it is one of the best scripts of all time, and I'm not alone thinking that. I screened it last September, and the audience was agreed with me. It's the ultimate buddy comedy, and as such, the ultimate paean to male friendship. Although in the time of the revisionist Western, it's more reflective in that it's concerned with the world of Butch and Sundance dying out and how they can't seem to find their place in the modern world. Director George Roy Hill finds just the right balance between the comedy, the drama, the action, all while managing to romanticize the genre and the era in a meaningful way through his stylistic choices. You may have gathered on the show that a film gains extra points for me if it can be simultaneously deep and entertaining. And if that's the formula, you can't get much better than Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I reevaluated my top 100 films. I do it every 10 years or so. And this film now, it fell a little bit to number 30. It is now my number 30th favorite film of all time. So it is a favorite. And I love it very much and can watch it anytime. So as soon as I knew this top 5 is coming, I knew this was going to be number 5. I'm surprised it's way down there at number 3 for you, Alex.
Well, I like a biopic and I like a swashbuckler, So those are just the types of movies that I like most.
I guess so. Any rebuttal for me? Do you feel like I overrated it?
No, not at all. I thought it was great. I really, really enjoyed it.
And Patrick, you don't remember it?
Yeah, but I do love a good buddy flick.
I would argue that this laid the template for that formula. Alex, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. And he was paid a record like $400,000 to write this screenplay too. Big hubbub at the time.
And this was his other Oscar. He won 2 Oscars, one for original for this and one for adapted for All the President's Men. So only one of you had All the President's Men on your list. I figured that would be the one that people were mad at that I did not have on my list. Are you guys mad that I bumped All the President's Men?
I'm not mad at you for having your own opinions.
I'm pissed. I can't stand it.
Even though you haven't seen it, you are angry.
I haven't seen it,
I know our fans, and our fans are going to be angry.
Why was it Maverick your number 1?
I did rewatch Maverick. I remember really enjoying it when I first saw it in the theaters in 1994. I didn't enjoy it as much this time around, but it's clever. Maybe too clever for its own good.
It felt like 4 episodes of a TV show more than a movie.
Which it was.
Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it's enjoyable, but not. I enjoy the Stepford Wives and All the President's Men more. So, guys, it's time to wrap things up. Evening summary. Alex debuted a segment. Patrick, you'd watched 6 films. How do you guys feel?
I feel like this guy, sometimes he phones it in. I don't know. Sometimes, but he's amazing. Like The Princess Bride and the way he adapted Misery. It's interesting looking at just 6 films of such diversity in taste of writing. So I really enjoyed this process.
Mix in Butch Cassidy and All the President's Men, and you'll have a more well-rounded viewpoint.
Yeah, I think so.
And A Bridge Too Far.
I'm surprised Bridge Too Far didn't make your list. It seems right up your alley.
It's number 6. It was a little too sprawling.
It's definitely sprawling. It's funny, you said you only watched a handful of films, Patrick, but the one that I just left on your doorstep, Great Waldo Pepper, wasn't mentioned.
Yeah, I looked at the trailer and I was like, I'd rather watch Stepford Wives.
Fair enough. Get that DVD in the mail. So, now I'm curious, while he was alive, and he just passed away, William Goldman was considered the greatest screenwriter of all time, the greatest living screenwriter. Who now takes over that mantle? Do you guys have specific thoughts? And when I say screenwriter, I'm specifically referring to someone who, like Goldman, does not direct their own works. Do you guys have a thought on that?
Alex Evans.
Oh, okay. That's one option, I suppose. I love you, but I'm not going to agree with that assessment. Patrick, is there a screenwriter that you follow or think is particularly strong?
I don't necessarily follow screenwriters, though I should.
The one that jumps to mind is it doesn't work as much because he writes very intense, long screenplays. Eric Roth is the screenwriter that immediately comes to mind. He won his Oscar for Forrest Gump, which is a great screenplay and adaptation, but he's also written the script for Ali, worked on Munich. The Good Shepherd is an underrated film that he worked on, directed by Robert De Niro, starring Matt Damon. A terrific screenplay. Similar to Goldman, there's a lot of information that he manages to squeeze into a cinematic time frame. So I really like the work of Eric Roth. Not as snappy with the dialogue as Goldman, but in terms of screenplay structure and storytelling, I think he's got the work there. So someone to look out for in the years to come. I mean, he's not young anymore, but he's still working.
I think I've seen 1 or 2 of those films you named.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of those. Really great films. Ali was great. Long and great. Forrest Gump.
Long and great. I recommend The Good Shepherd. I rewatched it a couple months ago for my birthday. Say goodbye to the folks, Patrick. Alex, say goodbye.
Goodbye, folks.
And ladies and gentlemen, with that, this meeting of the No Name Cinema Society is adjourned.